if you're not taking ownership for yourself and making yourself a priority, how are you possibly going to give to others?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to In the House podcast. I'm Toni Singh.
And I'm Jenny Woon.
And we have a lovely special guest today, Andrea Saliba of Holistic Wellness and Weight Loss Coaching. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Hey, Andrea.
Hello. Thanks for having me here, ladies. I'm so excited for this.
Awesome. I mean, we're excited too. Do you want to give our audience a little bit of a brief introduction on you? Like, what are you up to in the world? What kinds of things are you working on?
Yeah, so I am a certified holistic nutritionist and health coach. I've been doing this now for 7 years. Prior to that, I was heavily in the fitness industry. So I've technically been a certified fitness instructor for 18 years now. I'm currently not practicing that, however. So I had that background, and then I also have 4 children, so that's my other job. And I run health coaching, holistic wellness coaching programs. I have a program called the 30-Day Wellness Journey. So I focus on helping women specifically kind of just reshape their life and take a hold of their health, really. And of course, weight loss is part of that. But even people who aren't interested in losing weight, mainly just people who are looking to level up their life and change the way their body feels and functions, they would join my program for that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Let's start off with this question because we often forget to ask. What is your spirit animal?
My gosh. Okay. I saw that written and I didn't even know what to answer to that. I honestly don't even have an answer to that. A spirit animal. What's your spirit animal?
Oh, wow. No one ever asked us. I wasn't prepared to answer this.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'm feeling the swan energy right now. And I said that a while back last year, but not in the way when you had looked it up.
Okay, yes.
I'm feeling peaceful, serenity, a little bit of grace, because I believe that actually, depending on the energy and what you're feeling and what you're going through, your spirit animal or resonance can change. So I'm going to go with that one for today. How about you, Jenny?
I think every animal is so beautiful, but every time a hummingbird
I love
presents itself in a garden, especially in Costa Rica, that's what happened to me. That I just, I don't know.
They're beautiful.
I'm stunned by them. And I actually saw quite a bit of whales in Maui this December. So I would also say whales. So I'm going to pick 2.
Okay, you're allowed. It's our podcast.
You guys are so peaceful and graceful. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an animal that's not as peaceful. I mean, in my programs, I'm teaching people how to like calm their life. But the reality is in my own life, it's very hectic being a mom of 4 and also running my own business and trying to do all the things. So I'm trying to think of an animal that kind of relates to that. A part of me wants to say like a lion
or something.
I thought about that. I was going to say mama bear, but then I'm like, I'm also very like, yeah, so maybe a mama bear. I did think of mama bear, but then a lion also crossed my mind as well.
Yeah. Well, you could have 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrea, you
I'm a blend.
Yes. And that's what you are, like being in the working field and also a mom of 4. You're an author of 2021's Happy and Wholesome. You're a business owner and coach. Share with us how you started in this journey. Like what made you want to get into this business? First of all, I know that you mentioned you're a fitness instructor, but how that transitioned and what you've learned along the way as well.
Yeah, so it goes way, way back, I guess, when I mean, the number that I can think of is when I was around 11, maybe my daughter's age, 12 years old. I just remember something being said to me at that young of an age about my body, and that created a lot of fear around gaining weight. And I was always a very tall girl for my age. And, like in Italian, people would always say, oh, que grande, which means you're so big, but they meant tall, but to like a little girl, I always thought that that meant that I was big and large. So I just remember that wasn't specifically what was said, but I just remember something being said specifically to me that really stuck to me and actually really made me feel like I was gonna get, fat or overweight. And I was so fearful of that. So that kind of stemmed an eating disorder. Luckily, my eating disorder did not go to an extreme. It was more like body complex issues, low self-esteem, very, very low self-esteem actually as a teen girl. And thankfully, I did get help and kind of, was able to get out of that, I'd say by the time I had graduated high school. And that's when I really started learning what food does for the body and that, you don't need to starve yourself. And I started getting really interested in health and wellness at like the age of 16, 17. And I really wanted to be a dietitian in those days. And so I just remember, again, because I always had such poor negative self-worth and self-talk, that I just really felt like I wasn't able to achieve that. So I kind of just said to myself, I'm never going to make it to university because I'm not smart enough. And that was my narrative to myself, was that I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. I'm never going to amount to anything. And, so I just kind of put that all aside, and I decided to go ahead and become a fitness instructor. And I did that for many years. And then of course in my 20s, I dabbled in other things, but deep within my core, health and wellness was always something that was what I identified with. And, if you ask anybody that's known me, the first thing they would think of is fitness. Like they would relate me to fitness always, because that's what I was always about. And it wasn't until I'd say 2010 when my daughter was born and my mother-in-law was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, where I started researching, my husband and I started looking for alternative measures aside from medicine. Of course, medicine was important for my mother-in-law, but, holistic ways to manage her autoimmune. And I really got intrigued by what I was finding. And a girl that I was working with at Steve Nash at the time was taking a holistic wellness coaching program. And I was so intrigued. And here I am with one child. And, I was 29 years old. And I thought to myself, I really want to go back to school and learn about holistic wellness. Like I was just so wrapped up into it. And I remember telling my husband, I'll never forget, it was like December 31st. So we were going to enter a new year. It took a couple years for me to kind of get there. And I said to him, you know what, I'm going to go back to school and I want to become a health coach. And he kind of looked at me like I was a bit crazy, but, nonetheless, I went ahead and did it. And at that time I had already had my second child. So I went forward and I completed my, 2 full years. And then I got myself as a holistic nutritionist by the end of the program.
So you mentioned a couple of really, really important things in what you just explained to us about your journey. And that's one of the reasons why. So I'm going to say why we wanted to have you on the podcast. Obviously, it is a new year. A lot of people often, before it's the new year, they'll make goals about either production, things they want to see in their career and life. A lot of goals often tend to be with nutrition, fitness, healthier ways of being. And so in your journey, you mentioned that the mindset component from when maybe the complexes that you had encountered when you were younger really affected you, like that negative mindset. And a lot of what you do today when you're coaching your clients is you work on positive mindset so that they reach their goals. Is that correct?
100%. I mean, there was one part of the story I did leave out, which I think is actually the most important part. And that was that when I was in my mid 20s, I was living alone and I was experiencing a lot of anxiety and panic attacks, like a lot of them. And so I remember being introduced to The Secret. Do you guys remember The Secret?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you've
Yes.
heard of the law of attraction. So I became so wrapped up into that, and I started using a lot of those principles, and I created a vision board back then. And I remember when I moved into my very first house my husband and I bought, and I had 3 children at the time. I was unboxing my boxes, and I opened up my vision board from my mid-20s when I was going through a lot of the anxiety and panic and such. And literally almost everything that was on that vision board was my life, and it was crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah. So one thing that I wrap into my programs a lot, as you just mentioned, is the mindset. And I really truly believe that what you think you can create. I am a firm believer of that. And I'll tell you another thing. If you told me 5 years ago that I would write a book, which is right here,
Show us the book.
I probably would have thought you were absolutely crazy, because I don't really like reading, number one. And I'm certainly not a writer. And I had put to write a book on my recent vision board 2 years ago, which I thought was also kind of crazy. I guess that would have been almost 3 years ago now. And I just put that out there. I was like, oh, why not? Maybe I'll write a recipe book, because I know a lot of clients wanted it. But I just left it. And that's the part of the law of attraction. And honestly, like to this day, when I look at this, like this is, I still look at myself and go, I can't believe I did this, because not only did I do that where I never thought I could believe, it's when I look at the little girl in me from when I was 12 years old, 13, 15, 17 years old, and the way I used to speak to myself back then to who I am now. Sure, I'm a grown, mature woman now, but it took a lot of dedication and commitment to change and shift my mindset of whatever I was accustomed to speaking to really changing. And I'm still not, it's not like this every day. You're not constantly going to think positive. But I think for people in this new year who are looking to make changes in their life, that it's all about what you really tell yourself every single day. It's your belief system about yourself. And, what you tell yourself, your subconscious mind does not know the difference. So if you are constantly telling yourself, I am unhealthy and I'm overweight, I'm never going to get healthy, I'm never going to get fit, I can't do this. Well, your mind is saying that, and your body will give you what you want. So a lot of the times when we put out wishes, if you want to call them that, or desires, a lot of the times they might sound a bit far-fetched in the time being, but if you actually visualize those things, whatever they are, coming to your reality, and one tool that I do with my clients is I get them to close their eyes, and this is very powerful. I get them to ask themselves, in 10 years from now, how do you visualize your body feeling and functioning? And what does your health look like in 10 years from now? Because it's not going to happen overnight. Even if it's like a career goal, for example, it's not going to happen overnight. Things take time. And I think people are so wrapped up in quick fixes and gimmicks, and I want it now. And I even remember with my career in the very, very beginning, I would see people that I looked up to and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. But there was always sometimes some doubt, like, well, how am I going to get there? I don't have that experience. Well, I achieved a lot of those things that those people who had been maybe in the industry for 20 years, I achieved that in 5 years. And I believe that I did that with perseverance, commitment, dedication, authenticity, because people can read when you're not being authentic. And also my belief system. I changed the way I believed about myself, no matter what others thought about me. And I went forward with that.
So I think that even just with, thank you so much for sharing what you had shared about your experience, because it sounds like your own experiences have allowed you to tap into a different realm with your clients. So you said two really important things, but I'm going to ask the question again just to summarize everything and to see if there's any other tips that you might have. So walk us through when you're helping your clients or you're coaching them onto a better wellness journey or whatever their goals look like, to keep that positive mindset and have their goals come to fruition. What process do you take them through? So it sounds like you're teaching them about affirmations, visualization. You said, what other things what process do you take them through so that they have the results they want?
Well, ultimately, when a client comes to me, the first thing I ask them is what their priorities are. Because what I notice with people is they have every good intention to make changes, but if you're not putting yourself and your health as a priority, it's going to be so easy to just be like, well, I don't feel like going to the gym today, or oh gosh, it's going to take too long to make that meal. I'm just going to, pick up fast food. So I ask them really to dig in within themselves and ask themselves what their true priorities are, number one. Because if their priorities are not themselves, and for a lot of people that might sound very selfish, but here's how I see it, and I've really learned this as a mother, is that if you are constantly putting yourself last, then your health is going to be compromised, okay? And that doesn't necessarily just mean, like, when you say health is compromised, some people think, oh, a disease or a condition. It can also just be simply that you don't have that energy. Your moods are unstable. Like maybe you're lashing out at people. You're not sleeping well at night, which is number one in your health journey. Sleep is always number one. And so if you're not taking ownership for yourself and making yourself a priority, how are you possibly going to give to others and be there for others is number one. So establishing a why for them, why is this important? Okay. So if I were to ask you right now, Toni, like, what is your priority in life, right? Like, what would you answer? Like, obviously you're going to have more than one, but.
Actually, it's funny. It's so perfect that you just said that, because I was that person that would always put myself last, over the years. So it'd be clients first, brokerage first, kids definitely first, husband first, being a good daughter, sister, all of those things. And then you're basically living off of crumbs. And therefore the energy and the vitality is not there. And so to keep producing at a peak performance level, it's not possible. So my priority in 2023, and it's been evolving, right, Jenny, over the years.
I have seen it.
Yeah. It's like being my healthiest self, and a lot of that does start with rest. Like, so I was supposed to have show notes for Jenny today. I accidentally fell asleep at 9 p.m. last night. I couldn't ward off the sleep, because in the past I would power through. My body's been exhausted and I would just do it because it needed to be done. And that's not what actually serves me to be my best me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
Ask Jenny.
And and that's the thing. So that's what I get people to kind of like break it down, right? And of course, like most people will answer like my kids, my husband. But the reality is that you can't do all the things at once, right? So they have to like section off things and make time for each of those. But making time for yourself is very important. It's not a selfish thing at all, because I know very first-handed that when I do my workout, sometimes like even my husband will say to me, do you really need to go work out right now? Like, even we just came back from Disneyland, and we had an appointment with Goofy's Kitchen, and I said to my husband, like, my body's not feeling really good right now. I just need like a 10-minute burst of energy, like whatever. I'm just going to just do a couple mountain climbers, whatever. And he's kind of laughing, but he gets me because I know, and he knows, that when I just do that quick little movement, my serotonin is boosted, the endorphins are boosted, and instantly I feel different. It's not about weight loss. It's not about, I mean, let's be real, that's not gonna do much. What it's doing is it's reshifting the way I feel. And to me, that's a huge component to how I can be with my children and be for the remainder of the day, for my digestive system, because digestion for me has been a huge thing in 2022. I had lots of issues last year. And so that's a big part of it. And I have to do what I got to do to make sure that my body's functioning properly. So going back to answer your question, I always ask them, establish your why. You know, why are you here? What is your purpose? What are you looking to achieve? And I get them to write it down. And throughout the group, or if I'm doing private one-on-ones, if I find that the person is slipping, I try and get them back on track. Now, here's the thing. I tell people all the time when they join my program, I'm going to give you my 50%, and I need you to give me your 50% so that we can meet together and create 100%. Because it is a two-way street, but ultimately it's the other individual, the client, who has to put in the work. I can give you the tools. This is my program booklet right here. This is just paper and recipes and tools. But what the real thing is the relationship that I have with my client and me trying to keep them accountable. But if the person's not going to reciprocate, right? Like, it's like hitting myself up against a wall. And when that happens, it means that that person is either allowing their fear to step in, okay? Because when you're fearful, very often you step back. And I tell people that in order to change yourself, you must challenge yourself. If you look at the word challenge and remove the middle words, it spells change. Because in order to change, you need to challenge yourself. You have to get uncomfortable. If someone is sitting in their comfort zone, there's no growth at all. But as soon as you do something, you say you run that extra mile, or you say no to something when typically you would say yes, and that feels awful because your body wants to continue doing what it's always done, because your body's always trying to protect you, right? It's trying to keep you safe. And the problem with that sometimes is that it won't allow you to grow and change. So I try and remind my clients of that. You know, and I do as much as I possibly can, but ultimately it has to come from the individual. That's where the real magic happens, is where they finally get, I almost feel like they have to get to a breaking point where they are fed up. Like, I've seen people come to my program over and over and over again, and they get zero results, and they don't hand any of their assignments in, because there are assignments in my program. They don't respond to my emails. They don't respond to my text messages. And, you know, like, I will reach out, but if they're not going to reach back, so that's as far as I can go as a coach. But for them, it's interesting because one client in particular I had, she did that for a year straight. And I finally asked her, why do you keep joining? Like, why do you keep joining? And she said, you know, I know, she said that I'm not following through. She goes, I know that. It has nothing to do with you. She goes, it's all about me. She goes, but there's something about hearing your voice. She's like, I might not respond, but she's like, there's something about hearing your voice that kind of is keeping me there. And so that particular client last year really made a shift. She ended up getting diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that basically forced her to smarten up, I guess you can say. And I mean, it's really sad that that has to happen. But I don't know if you've ever seen that quote that says, if you don't make time for your wellness, be prepared to make time for your disease. Have you seen that quote before?
I've heard it, yeah.
Yes.
Very powerful. And sadly, for a lot of people, that's what ends up happening is then that's where they're like, okay, I got to do something about this. Right. So
You said that your first question to them is, what is your priorities? What is the pattern or the often reason that you hear why people come to you?
why people come into my program?
Yeah, what is their priority? Like what's the trend?
Interesting question.
What's really interesting is it's kind of makes me laugh a little bit because yeah, sure, I do help people with weight loss. That is, people walk in and they're like, I want to lose weight, but they have no idea what they just signed up for because they think that it's going to be like, okay, let's count the calories and let's exercise and let's do a challenge. Like, do you know how many people call my program the 30-day challenge? And it drives me mental because it's not a 30-day challenge. I purposely called it a wellness journey because 30 days is enough. In 30 days, don't expect to be like, oh my God, drastic results. What ends up happening in 30 days and why it's called a wellness journey is that sure, you might witness a little bit of weight loss, for sure you will. But more importantly, and what my whole program is about, what my coaching is all about, is you are changing, you are beginning to like pretend like you're walking through weeds and you're just separating until you get to you're like, oh, okay, now I see it, right? So people start seeing the light. They start going, oh my gosh, I can actually eat 3 meals a day and feel really full. I don't need to skip like breakfast or lunch. I don't need to like say no to that cake or that glass of wine on a Saturday night. I can actually have some food freedom. And that's the whole thing. And like, it's people too, like very often they'll be like, oh my gosh, you must be so strict with your diet. And I'm like, guys, I eat, if you see how, like I eat a lot. I eat a lot of food, but I know that how I'm portioning my meals are right for my body, right? And so that's what I teach the client is that you are you. You are not Sally. You are not, so-and-so next door. You are you, and you have to get to know your body and really tap in. And so I teach them about mindfulness and intuitive eating and really trusting your body. Because I think what diet culture has taught us all, is that we can't trust our body anymore. That if, God forbid, you eat that cake, you're going to gain weight. And it's just not like that. Like it does not happen overnight. And my famous quote, and it's written in my book, is it's not the things you're doing once in a while. It's the things that you're doing daily that matter. So if you are consistent with your routine, then you will see the results. If you, go off track one day, it's not going to make or break anything, right? So ultimately people are coming for weight loss, but when they leave, they're like, whoa, what was that? Like, I just learned so much about my body, my health, and and especially if they put the work in and they are committed, right? So, yeah.
When they come in with that question about the weight loss and I want to lose weight, and do they come in with like a number, like where they want to be at a certain pounds, or are they coming in with a picture of like a celebrity that they want to look like?
No, I've never had anybody do that. A lot of the time, so a lot of my clients are like, I'd say majority, not all, are like 40 plus. And I like this age because this really is the age where, I'm 40 now and I notice a difference. Like it is different from when you're 20 to 30, but the thing is we just need to learn how to accept our bodies as we change, right? And so a lot of people will be like, well, when I was in my 30s, I could do this and I used to run marathons. And I'm like, why are you looking back there? Like if I were to look at myself when I was 29 years old, like the things that I could do with my body back then when I used to work out with a trainer was insane. Was that even really healthy for my adrenal glands? And should a 40 plus woman be doing that kind of drastic cardio? Absolutely not. For your adrenals, for your hormones, from 40 to 50, this is the time where your body is like kind of getting ready for menopause. So women need to understand how hormones work. And that's one thing I teach in my program as well, is that, you know, the importance of like having protein at every meal as you get into this age category, and to really just accept your body. Now, not using that as an excuse, but accepting your body, that it is going to change every 10 years, that you're not going to be identical to who you were when you were 20 or 30, nor should you. You know what I mean? But you can still shape and mold your life, your health, and your body to one that you feel proud of, that you can say, you know, I'm 50 years old and I'm still running like 8 kilometers, or I'm still, you know, having energy like a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old, you know, like those are things to celebrate. So I forgot what your question was, because I always go off the track, but
No, it was still useful. The question was more about, do people have an idea of what weight loss looks like to them?
It's usually them comparing themselves to who they were.
Right.
And I tell them that that's, you're going to keep yourself stuck. Like I used to do that too, right? But now it's like, no, this is a new journey. This is a new journey going forward, right? And so it's just reshifting the mindset. Again, always comes back to the mindset. Always, always, always. Oops.
What's trending right now, Andrea, is calorie deficits. That's on TikTok a lot. What are your thoughts on like intermittent fasting, and how is this different from starvation? I know that, you know, a lot of people promote it because they say they do it themselves. What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, it made me laugh a bit when you said calorie deprivation is a trend. Deficit, excuse me, is a trend, because it really isn't a trend. It's, I mean, some people may or may not agree with me when you say, you know, if you want to lose weight, like weight, okay, we're not talking even fat. There's a difference between weight loss and fat loss.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, there's a huge difference, right? Because you can lose weight. It could be some muscle. It could be water. You could go to the bathroom right now and dump out 2 pounds if you haven't gone in a while, and you'll lose some weight. So I really want to stress that, number one. So when people say weight loss, it's women's bodies also specifically can fluctuate. And I will answer your question, but I want to say this. Women's bodies specifically can fluctuate more than a man, because we have periods and we have hormones that are different than a man. So during that time of the month, a lot of women can go up 4 to 5 pounds, right? In water weight, blood volume. Once it's done, you'll even notice your tummy would be flatter and things are just different. So again, this is part of acceptance and understanding and knowledge. So I try and educate people on that, because a lot of them don't. I know when I was younger, I certainly didn't know that. I didn't understand that. I remember people, when I was younger, people always saying, oh, you know, I told you que grande, right? It was tall. Well, when you're tall, your caloric needs are completely different. I'm not small boned. I've got larger bones. My frame is larger. I carry more muscle, you know, etc. So we have to look at those types of things. But going back to your point, if you want to lose fat or weight, we'll say, you do need to burn more calories than you take in. You do need to be in a calorie deficit. But I don't like using that word, because it sounds so stringent, and it sounds like it sounds like you have, yeah, exactly. It sounds like you have to deprive yourself. But you don't. It's just about shifting your macros around a little bit, right? And this is what I teach people in the program. Like, I remember, I'll never forget it. It was the cutest thing. I had this client say to me, oh my God, I've never eaten so much in my whole life, and I've actually lost 5 pounds. Like, she's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, well, it's because you're eating like fiber and protein and volume foods that are less calories, but keep you full and satiated. And there's a difference. So going back to intermittent fasting, I'm not against intermittent fasting, but what I will say is that it's not for everybody. I think that for some women, it's not a good idea. It can mess with their hormones. It's not a good idea if anybody's got insulin resistance or any blood pressure, like problems, anything like that. Although I did just recently read an article saying that it's helpful significantly for people with diabetes. So, you know, you read this, you read that, and it's like, where do I go with it? A lot of the times you have to try it on your body and see how it feels. I do know one thing. For quite some time, I was having some problems with my digestion, which I've completely healed. And intermittent fasting did help me slightly for a short time frame. So that's the other thing. Intermittent fasting, I wouldn't do it as a lifestyle. I would do it for a short period of time. I do know some people who have obviously lost weight from it. But the question really should always be, especially as we enter this new year and people want to dabble in like new trendy diets or whatever you want to call them. The question should always be, can I eat this way and live this way for the rest of my life? Right. And if the answer is no, then you don't have a good program for yourself. You have yourself a trap, a jail, essentially. Because you want to, and I go back to that word food freedom, you still want to have freedom, because the reality is that we go on holidays. We go out for dinner with friends. We have gatherings. Food is pleasure. And to give yourself little restrictions here and there and make yourself feel like, well, I can't have that, or it's not my eating window right now. You know what I mean? It can be stressful for the body, and it can backfire on you. So I would just say to anybody looking to do intermittent fasting, again, I'm not against it, but I don't think it's for everyone. And if you're planning to try intermittent fasting, I would highly encourage you work alongside with a trained professional who can actually set up a meal plan and a guide properly for you. And with intermittent fasting, what I also want to say about it is that I don't recommend going longer than 16 hours of fasting. A lot of issues can happen in the body with cortisol and insulin, like your hunger hormones. You know, some other studies I've read say different, but again, you kind of have to test it on your own body. The sweet spot is typically a 12 to 14 hour window, and that's because you would say have your last meal of the day, pretend at 7 p.m. and then hopefully you wouldn't eat anything then, and then you'd go to bed. And when you sleep, this is your rest and digest state. And I definitely do agree that it is much better to go to bed without something in your body, because this is your time for your body to do its thing, repair itself. And if it has to digest, that's just an extra step your body has to do. So that's my thoughts on the intermittent fasting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I was curious about that too. Thanks for asking the question. Andrea, you know my family. Yeah. I'm a mom of two, and David and I have always had really good intentions of doing proper meal planning for the kids, making sure that everything that we're making has the nutrition that they require for young people and ourselves. What process, like obviously this is a complete lifestyle change. It's not something that you can just do once in a while, but you've been doing it for a long time. So what process do you utilize with your family in terms of like meal planning, or like, is there a specific schedule where once a week or twice a week you're doing your grocery shopping and making things in advance? Can you speak to that? Because there's a lot of people with families listening that want to make sure they're doing everything they can for their family's health.
So I'm laughing at this as well because, you know, when I remember when Michaela and Nicholas were little, it was so much easier to make them eat healthy. And then I added Christian to the mix, and then Romeo to the mix. And now we've got 4 kids, and 2 of them are growing. Michaela eats like an adult. Nicholas eats like an adult. And they have gotten tremendously picky. And you know, the last thing I want to do is create fear around food. Number one. A lot of things that I'm hearing out there, and I am guilty of using this word in the past and have changed my vocabulary since, is the term clean eating. Because it makes you feel like if they eat a packaged food or something that they're dirty or bad, but it's not. I mean, the reality is, as parents, we are busy. Like, my husband works, I'm working, I'm struggling to drive back and forth from activities with kids. My priority is to make sure my kids are fed. You know what I mean?
Of course.
So we try our best to have healthy foods, but the reality is sometimes when your kids grow up and get into the teenage years and they're a little bit more influenced by people around them, they sometimes will not like the food you make anymore. Like, I remember chicken. I used to make these chicken dishes that my family would love, and now everyone's like, oh, I don't like the chicken, I don't want it. And it's like, really? So then you get stumped, like you don't know what to make. So I'm going to answer your question now. What I do with my family, I don't do it all the time, but I do it here and there because it actually really works. So I have this chart, big board that I got on Etsy, and it's a marker board, and it's got all the kids' names on it. And I ask them to pick a day of the week. So each kid has to pick a day of the week and tell me what I'm going to be making for dinner. And in that dinner, they have to have a protein and vegetables. They have to. So I get them to be creative. I mean, my kids are old enough. Romeo, not so much, but you know, they're old enough to understand. And so what's interesting is when you do this, they feel like they're in charge. And so when I go to make the meal and we're having that dinner, they actually eat it because it's something they like. I've set out the rules that it has to have a vegetable in it. Okay. Sometimes it's not a vegetable that I necessarily would choose. Like, Christian always chooses corn, and I'm like, can it be something different? Like, is there another type of vegetable? But yeah. So this is a good way to get your younger ones, and sometimes even the teenage ones. I had a client once who struggled as well with feeding her teenage kids. So what I said to her is, tell your daughter to go on Pinterest, because Pinterest is cool, I think, still, and go through and tell her to find some recipes that you think that she would like. Tell her to find recipes that she would like. So basically what I'm trying to say is, get them involved in the process. Okay. Number one, meal prep is awesome. I love meal prep. Right now, it doesn't really work with my family because every day we have a different activity, and sometimes my son isn't even home for dinner. So it depends on our schedules. So a lot of times the meal prep you might see me posting on my social media is a lot of the stuff that I'm just eating for myself at either a dinner where my husband's not there or for my lunches or whatnot. But meal prep can definitely be a great tool if your family is okay with eating pre-prepped meals. My family used to be okay with it. Now they've changed. And that's the common trend that I hear with families, is that they used to like it. Then as they age, you'll see your kids will go in stages.
I'm seeing it right now. So I appreciate you saying this because I thought it was just that they didn't like my food.
No, it's not that. And you know, the other problem is too, is my kids go to their grandparents, like my mom and dad, right? So my mom has all the fun Italian food, and you know, they want to eat that. And I'm like, well, you can't eat that every day, right? I mean, you could, but you can't. Like, you probably should have a little bit more. Not that my mom doesn't serve vegetables and stuff, but you know what I'm trying to say. I really believe that parents stress a lot. I think this is going to be a key point here. Parents really stress a lot about what we're putting on our kids' plate, but really what you should focus on, and this goes back to priorities again, is what are you doing as a parent? How are you modeling? What behaviors around food are you modeling for your child? My kids see me eating the vegetables, eating the protein, talking about protein, why it's important. They see me going, getting up, taking my water, drinking it. My daughter started copying me because she really looks up to me She literally wants to do everything I do, so I have to be very careful. But now she carries her little tumbler around and she's drinking so much more water. So monkey see, monkey do. Be that role model. A lot of the times your kids are 100% going to go the other way, and they're going to start eating the chips and going to 7-Eleven just like we did when we were teenagers, right? But they'll come back, because if it's modeled at home and they have that foundation of what good health is, their body is going to crave it again, and they will come back to that again.
Amazing. And let's talk about the programs that you offer, that you've thoughtfully put together for your clients, your one-on-one wellness coaching, your 30-day wellness journey, and your Tone and Tighten package. Can you maybe run through each of them and what they include and kind of the cost of that?
Yeah, so my one-on-one private coaching is actually something I just introduced recently. For anybody who, personally, I like working with groups. So that's why I wasn't offering one-on-one in the past. But I decided to do it because there are a lot of people that really just don't like to work in a group setting. So this is a 6-week program, and it is completely tailored to the individual's needs. It's $12.99. You get me for 6 weeks. Every week we have a Zoom meeting together, and I'm making and creating a meal plan specifically tailored to whatever you and I are talking about with your health journey or your health concerns. So it's very customizable. I'm also checking in every week with you to make sure you're on track with goals that I've given you and set for you. And this looks very different for every single client who does one-on-one with me. It just depends what the person needs. Some need more, some need less, some need something in the middle. I ask them what they prefer, what they like, what they don't like, and go with what the client really needs. But I do like to push people a little bit, because I feel like if I'm not pushing them, then how are they going to, hold themselves accountable, really? And the 30-day wellness journey, I'm running it a few times throughout the year. I usually take the summer away to be with family, but also because people really don't join in the summertime. They're usually away and enjoying holidays. So this program is a group setting. They're all getting the same meal plan, but what makes my program very unique and kind of innovative is that you don't actually have to follow a meal plan. I don't want to give it all away because it's kind of like my tool, but there's a method that I get clients to follow that they can literally take anywhere in the world or anywhere they are, to lose weight, to feel their best, and to get all the nutrients that their body is needing. And people seem to really like it because it's a very flexible program. Because I always say to people, you can download a meal plan off the internet. What you're really getting with the coaching, with the program, is the coaching. Like, I cannot be replicated. My system and way of being with my clients is what you're getting. You can ask any client I've ever had, and they will all tell you that I am 100% dedicated and committed to my clients. And I'm always there, showing up in our community chat and making sure that people are doing well and being educated. That's my number one priority. So that's what they're really getting. There is like a group chat as well that we engage in every single day. Some people don't really like this aspect. And I tell them if they're not interested, they can always mute the conversation. But this is really where the bread and butter is of the program, because I'm often coming on there giving a lot of really great advice and answering questions and basically just lighting fire under people's butts to make sure that they're doing the work. And we also, what I started doing last year is introducing a little step challenge to the program as well, so that it encourages all fitness levels to move their body more. And this, as we talked about, the calories in versus calories out, kind of just kickstarts that weight loss journey for the person as well, right?
Awesome.
And your Tone and Tighten workouts.
Yeah, so that was just like a little package that I put together a couple years ago for anybody who wanted to purchase an online workout program. So it's just got a variety of different exercises for upper, lower, and the abs. And so yeah, they can just download that pay for it and it gets downloaded to their computer. There's no coaching involved there.
That's awesome. You definitely hit everything for different types of people. So perfect. Andrea, we know that you have to go shortly, but before we wrap up, we want to do our fun little game that we do at the end of every episode. It's the 5 rapid fire questions. Are you available to do that right now?
Yeah, of course, for sure.
Okay, first question. What is your biggest splurge or indulgence food?
Oh my gosh, I'm a sucker for chocolate. So if there's chocolate in the house, it's going down. I can't say no to chocolate. Yeah, chocolate, 100%.
Do you ever allow your kids to have fast food like McDonald's?
Not frequently, that's for sure. But when we were recently in Disneyland, my son Nicholas insisted, because he kept seeing In-N-Out on the YouTube channels that he watches. And so we all went to In-N-Out, and I refused to eat it because I'm like, oh my God, that would make me feel like garbage. But you know what? There was literally nothing else open at that time. And I was like, okay, whatever. So yes, of course we do. Got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Awesome. Your favorite read? I know you said you don't like to read, but if you had to pick one.
You know what? I shouldn't say don't like to read. I'm really into self-help books. So I have actually read a lot of Gabby Bernstein's books and Marie Forleo. I really, really love Marie Forleo.
Oh, she's fantastic.
And my top of my top is Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins is one of my favorites out there. Would love to meet her one day.
Yeah. 3 words to describe yourself.
I think I would definitely say like real. Like I don't sugarcoat anything ever for anyone or anything. I think I'm fun. I like to believe I'm fun. And definitely, I would say trustworthy. Like I am a very good friend, and to the people I love and care about the most. I actually care for all people, and I would never, ever go out of my way to hurt someone intentionally, and very loving to all is what I would say. Like I feel like I have a big heart, and I would do a lot, especially for the people I love the most.
Like compassion or
integrity?
There was another word, and compassion, integrity. There's another
up there, so.
Okay, awesome. Well,
and finally, where can our listeners find you to sign up?
So they can go to my website, andreasaliba.ca. And I'm very, very active on Instagram. So my handle there is Andrea_Saliba.nutrition.
Amazing.
Thanks for coming on, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
It was really fun.